Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. The leaders of South Korea and Turkmenistan have agreed to broaden cooperation on major energy and infrastructure projects. The newly inked deal is believed to pave the way for $6 billion worth of contracts for Korean firms. South Korea's 11-month current account surplus came to an end in April. More dividend payments to foreign investors and increased import costs were the cause. The UN Security Council has endorsed a U.S. proposed Israel-Gaza ceasefire plan. According to the resolution, Israel has accepted the proposal and Hamas also welcomed Monday's move. South Korea and Turkmenistan are elevating their partnership to a whole new level. Now, this as the two sides append new construction deals for Korean firms in Turkmenistan. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young starts us off.
South Korea and Turkmenistan have agreed to boost cooperation on major energy and infrastructure projects, which are expected to rake in some $6 billion worth of contracts for Korean firms. This came on Monday as President Yoon and his Turkmen counterpart Serdar Bermuhamedov held a bilateral summit in Ashgabat and issued a joint statement as they oversaw the signing of some 8 memorandums of understanding.
오늘 저는 베르디 무하메도프 대통령님과 회담을 갖고 기존 협력을 더욱 내실화하고 협력의 지평을 미래지향적으로 확대함으로써 우리의 호혜적 동반자 관계를 더욱 심화 발전시키기로 하였습니다.
Turkmenistan and South Korea see enormous potential for joint cooperation in creating a supercontinental shipping route from Asia to Europe between East and West and North and South. We confirmed our mutual interest in expanding cooperation in the energy sector.
During their talks, the two leaders agreed to strengthen collaborations on large-scale construction projects, as Hyundai Engineering inked a deal with state-owned Turkmen Gas for the 4-stage desulfurization facility at the Galkanish gas field and resume operation of the Kianli polymer plant on the Caspian coast. The top-level meeting is also expected to boost Daewoo Engineering's chances of clinching orders for urea and ammonia fertilizer plants in Turkmenistan. These potential construction projects combined could generate some $6 billion worth of contracts, according to Yoon's Senior Secretary for Economic Affairs. To further boost business activities and exchanges, the two governments signed a bilateral framework to promote trade and investment in various sectors, including energy, green economy and digital technology.
TIPF is an institutional mechanism for not only trade and investment but also strategic cooperation across industry and energy in response to changes in the global trading order. Turkmenistan has not yet joined the WTO, so it was not easy for our companies to access the local market. But with the conclusion of this TIPF, a stable investment environment will be created.
Yoon and Bermuhamedov also backed collaborations on developing smart cities and transport infrastructure in a separate deal, as well as agreeing to ramp up cooperation in areas like shipbuilding, ICT, healthcare, climate response and development cooperation. Their governments recently agreed to increase flight operations between the two countries from the current twice a week to 5 times a week, which would promote bilateral exchanges. During the summit, both leaders recognized the need for the complete denuclearization of North Korea for global peace and prosperity, emphasizing the importance of fulfilling international obligations under UN Security Council resolutions.
As they elevated their partnership to new heights, the Turkmen leader expressed his support for President Yoon's K-Silk Road initiative, South Korea's first ever regional strategy for comprehensive cooperation with Central Asia, from procuring natural resources to increasing human exchanges and development assistance.
As part of his 3-nation tour in Central Asia this week, President Yoon will also travel to Kazakhstan on Tuesday and Uzbekistan on Thursday. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And on the first day of President Yoon's week-long trip to Central Asia, he and First Lady Kim Geun-hee attended a state dinner hosted by the President of Turkmenistan and his wife. Yoon's principal deputy security advisor Kim Tae-ho told reporters that the first couples had time to deepen their friendship at the dinner, made all the more meaningful by the attendance of Turkmenistan's First Lady, who is rarely seen in public events. Earlier in the day, President Yoon and the First Lady visited the Independence Monument, which was built in 2001 to commemorate the 10th anniversary of Turkmenistan's independence. They paid their respects by laying flowers and holding a tree planting ceremony. Yoon on Tuesday will make a keynote speech at a business forum and meet with former President Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov to hold further talks on bilateral cooperation. Findings for April show South Korea's current account is losing ground to post a deficit for the month, ending a year-long surplus streak. Our economics correspondent Moon Hae-ryun explains.
South Korea's current account swung back into the red in April for the first time in a year on the back of increased dividend payments to foreign investors and rising prices of raw materials. Preliminary data released by the Bank of Korea on Tuesday show that the country's current account recorded a deficit of $290 million in April. This ends the surplus streak for the account seen since May 2023. The goods account recorded a $5.11 billion surplus due to a rise in outbound shipments. A majority of export categories recorded by the central bank showed a rise on year in total value, with semiconductors recording more than a 54% increase as the industry showed recovery from last year's lows. Imports, however, were also up due to the rising prices of raw materials such as gas and oil, which is the main reason the goods account surplus was lower than in previous months. The primary account that monitors foreign workers' wages and overseas dividend payments saw a deficit of nearly $3.4 billion on the back of increased foreign dividend payments. According to a BOK representative, this is because South Korean firms tend to pay out dividends to overseas investors in April.
Current account balance in April normally shows a deficit due to a deficit in the primary income account. For April this year, there was a temporary deficit in the current account because of the decreased surplus in the goods account with rising import value in addition to the primary income deficit.
The service account, which includes earnings and spending on overseas trips and transport, recorded a $1.66 billion deficit. The reason given was increased outbound travel, but the central bank said that an influx of tourists coming to South Korea from China and Southeast Asia helped to reduce the deficit. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
In the first 5 months of this year, South Korean construction companies received nearly $10 billion of orders for Middle East projects. According to data from the International Contractors Association of Korea, orders from the Middle East from January to May were worth over $9.9 billion. Now that's 6 times the amount of the same period last year. The total global orders Korean firms won totaled nearly $14 billion, the highest since 2020. And the Middle East alone accounted for 70% of those orders. Samsung E&A and GS-E&C have largely led the drive, winning big contracts in Saudi Arabia. For the first time in South Korea's constitutional history, the main opposition bloc has selected parliamentary committee chiefs in a unilateral vote. The main opposition Democratic Party and minor parties unilaterally voted to choose 11 standing committee chairman seats amid a ruling People Power Party boycott. With the PPP and the DP failing to agree on how to share standing committees, rival party floor leaders and the Assembly Speaker met on Monday before opposition parties pushed through a plenary session to vote. Now, all 11 committees will be chaired by DP lawmakers, including Jung Chung-lee, who will lead the Legislation and Judiciary Committee. The two rival parties have been at odds over appointing the chairman of the chamber's 18 standing committees, with both parties vying for the chairmanship of Judiciary, Broadcasting, and Steering Committees. North Korean troops crossed the inter-Korean border last Sunday while working within the demilitarized zone. According to an official from South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff, speaking to reporters on Tuesday, a group of North Korean troops briefly crossed some 50 meters over the military demarcation line at around noon on Sunday. The official said the troops appear to have gotten lost in the woods while working in the DMZ, but immediately returned north after the South Korean military aired warning broadcasts and fired warning shots. No unusual activity has been recorded since, and the military says it's closely monitoring the North's movement and taking necessary measures. And amid escalating tensions here on the Korean Peninsula, South Korea and the U.S. held nuclear consultation talks here in Seoul. The two countries have completed reviewing guidelines, which include ways to respond in case of the North's nuclear attack. Pinji reports.
Officials from South Korea and the U.S. met in Seoul on Monday to hold the third meeting of the Nuclear Consultative Group. This is a group that the two countries agreed to establish last year when their leaders met in Washington, aiming to bolster extended deterrence against North Korea's nuclear missile programs. In a press conference following the meeting, the two sides announced that they have finished reviewing joint guidelines on ways to deter threats and how to respond and communicate in case of a possible nuclear attack from North Korea.
Today, the NCG completed its review of the guidelines document, perhaps our most significant progress in the first year of the NCG. The guidelines provide principles for how policy and military authorities will work together to maintain a credible and effective nuclear deterrence policy and posture against the evolving security environment.
Although exact details were not revealed due to security reasons, the U.S. official added that both sides will use the guidelines to deepen cooperation, particularly on combined concepts, exercises, and activities. Seoul's defense ministry also said the two countries will continue to develop these guidelines.
We agreed to continue improving and advancing the joint guidelines that will lay a solid foundation for strengthening cooperation on the unified extended deterrence between South Korea and the U.S.
The two sides also discussed ways to increase the visibility of U.S. strategic assets deployments around the Korean Peninsula, as well as ways to conduct conventional and nuclear integration exercises. The first Nuclear Consultative Group meeting was held last July, and the second in December. The two countries announced that the fourth meeting will be held at the end of this year in the U.S. Pinji, Arirang News.
Russian leader Vladimir Putin plans to visit North Korea and Vietnam as early as this month. Now, it's believed the leaders of Moscow and Pyongyang will discuss economic and defense cooperation at their third summit. Our Kim Bo-kyung has more.
Russian President Vladimir Putin will visit North Korea and Vietnam in the next few weeks. That's according to Russian daily newspaper Vedomosti on Monday. Citing a diplomatic source, the report said that Putin's visit to Vietnam will take place as early as June, most likely immediately after his visit to North Korea. It was quoted the Russian ambassador to North Korea who said that Putin's visit to Pyongyang will happen and is actively being prepared. There have been indicators that Putin will visit North Korea, as there have been many high-level exchanges between the two over the recent months. A Kremlin spokesperson, too, had already said preparations for Putin's possible trip to the north were proceeding at their own pace. This comes after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited Russia last September, touring the Vostochny Space Launch Center and holding talks with Putin. Ever since their summit, ties have been deepening between North Korea and Russia, with suspected arms transfers from Pyongyang to Moscow to be used in the war in Ukraine in exchange for Russia's assistance in advanced military technologies. If Putin does make a reciprocal visit to North Korea as early as June, it will mark his first in 24 years since July 2000, and it would be just around a month after Putin's two-day visit to China, which took place from the 15th to 16th of last month. One expert says Russia's assistance to North Korea for its economic development could be on the agenda.
In terms of political and military-related issues, they could try to boost bilateral ties in the new Cold War scene, and the rest could be about Russia's economic assistance or cooperation with the regime, involving the dispatch of North Korean workers, energy and food, because Pyongyang needs Moscow's help for economic development.
As for Vietnam, Putin agreed to visit Hanoi while talking over the phone with Vietnam Communist Party Secretary Nguyen Phu Trong this March. His last official visit to Vietnam was in November 2013. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
The UN Security Council on Monday backed a resolution supporting a U.S. proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza, which the Palestinian militant group Hamas has welcomed. Lee Seung-jae has more.
In what could be the first step in finally ending months of conflict in Gaza, the UN Security Council on Monday adopted a resolution supporting a U.S. proposal for a ceasefire. The resolution received 14 votes in favor at the 15-member Security Council, with Russia abstaining. It highlights months of diplomatic efforts made by the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt, while welcoming a three-phase deal announced by U.S. President Joe Biden in late May. The resolution also states that Israel has accepted the proposal and called on Hamas to do the same. The deal was presented by Biden on May 31st, with the first phase calling for an immediate, full and complete ceasefire and the release of hostages and the remains of hostages who lost their lives. It also calls for a prisoner exchange involving Palestinian prisoners, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from parts of Gaza, the return of Palestinians to their homes, as well as the distribution of humanitarian assistance. All remaining hostages in Gaza and a full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza would take place in the second phase. The final phase calls for a long-term reconstruction plan for Gaza. Hamas was quick to respond to the adoption of the resolution, welcoming the move by the UNSC. It said it's now ready to cooperate with mediators over implementing the plan. Meanwhile, NBC News reported Monday that U.S. officials have considered a unilateral deal with Hamas to release 5 American hostages held in Gaza if ceasefire talks involving Israel fail. It's not yet known what the U.S. might offer Hamas in exchange. The U.S. says the Palestinian militant group has been holding 5 American hostages since October 7th. Officials are also hoping to recover the bodies of 3 Americans who were killed that day. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Italy is set to host this year's G7 summit from June 13 to the 15th, with the Ukraine crisis among the main topics on the agenda. On Sunday, U.S. President Joe Biden said he had reached an agreement with French President Emmanuel Macron about using profits from frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine. G7 nations and the European Union are expected to discuss how to use these profits to provide Ukraine with an upfront loan. Around $281 billion worth of Russian assets are frozen worldwide, which equates to profits of between $2.7 and $3.75 billion a year. The EU says the profits are not contractually owed to Russia. Apple has introduced what it calls its personal intelligence system. The so-called Apple Intelligence should be able to draw from users' personal information on their devices to answer their questions, now all in a privacy-conscious way. Lee Si-hoo reports.
Apple has unveiled its artificial intelligence technology called Apple Intelligence, which the company says will put powerful generative models right at the core of Apple products.
It draws on your personal context to give you intelligence that's most helpful and relevant for you. It protects your privacy at every step, and it is deeply integrated into our platforms and throughout the apps you rely on to communicate, work, and express yourself.
The AI will be integrated into Apple's operating systems used in its products, namely the iPhone, iPad, and MacBook. Apple says the new functions will help users in their everyday tasks in writing and communication, as well as in image and emoji creation. It will also help Siri, Apple's digital assistant since 2011, carry out new actions, especially by using OpenAI's ChatGPT. The new functions were announced at the company's annual Worldwide Developer Conference on Monday at its headquarters in California. Despite the announcement, Apple shares were down nearly 2% on Monday before market closing, amid voices that Apple Intelligence is nothing new but simply an upgrade of existing technologies. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
We're getting closer step by step to drone taxis and short-distance air transport. But how is South Korea looking to take its first move? Our An Sung-jin tells us more.
A helicopter flies above the city of Seoul. It will soon provide the country's first helicopter shuttle service.
Urban air mobility is not yet familiar, and the necessary infrastructure is still lacking. We're looking to build the infrastructure and customer base needed for the market, and once UAM becomes prevalent, we would like to contribute to the Korean air mobility market.
Opening its reservations on Tuesday, the helicopter service will start operating in 2 weeks. Its major route, which is from Gangnam to Incheon International Airport, cuts travel time from an hour and a half down to just 20 minutes. The chopper can hold up to 8 passengers, and not only does it shuttle customers to and from the airport, but it will also provide tours. The company aims to use helicopters as a stepping stone to further develop urban air mobility. This helicopter behind me could soon be an electric vehicle takeoff and landing aircraft, as the company is rushing towards pushing South Korea to the age of the affordable urban air mobility. eVTOLs use batteries or fuel cells rather than a helicopter's typical combustion rotor engine, which helps reduce noise. Data from the Korea Agency for Infrastructure Technology Advancement shows that South Korea is looking to commercialize UAM starting from 2025 and to further integrate it by 2030. By 2040, it aims to reach $10.9 billion in terms of market value.
UAM will be a new, smart mobility solution to increase transport efficiency. However, apart from technological advancement, we also have to look at how it can be integrated into the city and our daily life as a new transportation system.
In order to establish a well-integrated UAM system, the private sector should provide transport services, while the government aims to establish a traffic management system and provide the necessary infrastructure. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Monday was Danoje here in South Korea, the 5th day of the 5th month of the lunar calendar. The city of Gangneung went all out to celebrate the day, keeping alive many ancient traditions from sacred rites to sports. Our Yoon has the story.
Danoje is the day when villagers in Korea would gather to seek blessings for a fruitful harvest. Although this custom has faded in modern society, it's kept alive thanks to the Gangneung Danoje festival. It's held annually in the city of Gangneung in Gangwon State, and in 2005, the festival was designated by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Also called Surin날, Danoje falls on the 5th day of the 5th month of the lunar Korean calendar. In 2024, under the theme Soar Danoje, the festival runs from June 6th to June 13th for 8 days, offering a wide range of traditional events including performances, rituals, and plays.
These combined traditions transform the festival into a lively celebration where local residents come together for a joyful feast and festivities.
One of the festival's most renowned traditions is the kut, or shamanic rituals.
It's interesting to see different performances every hour that align with its designated theme.
Around 20 rituals are performed, including ones honoring the guardian deities of Gangneung. Each prayer offers a distinct purpose, ranging from blessings for a bountiful harvest to ensuring the health of loved ones. Alongside the diverse programs, there is also the largest market in the country. The Korean term nanjang, meaning place of chaos, is used to describe the marketplace, where not only food and goods are sold, but folk costumes can be enjoyed, such as traditional performances or plays like the swings. Another tradition enjoyed at the festival is shirum, or traditional Korean wrestling, which is a significant part of Korean culture. The Gangneung Danoje Festival this year is full of experiential events for visitors to enjoy. With 64 events to explore, the festival offers a chance to experience the essence of Korean traditional culture. Yoon, Arirang News, Gangneung.
Good afternoon. It's a scorcher today. It's too hot to be June. Can't imagine how hot it is in Daegu. So it comes as no surprise that the season's first heat advisory was issued in Gyeongsang-do provinces and Daegu yesterday, while Gangneung had the season's first tropical night with overnight temperatures not going down below 25 degrees Celsius. This came 18 days earlier than last year. And the sunshine sunshine continues to be too bright today. You should be able to feel the sunburn when exposed to that strong sunshine within a few minutes. Please have a hat and sunglasses ready for your own protection from UV rays. Temperatures show no signs of easing this week, and Seoul could also see the season's first heat advisory on Friday. Checking on today's highs for other regions now, Gyeongju sees a high of 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon, but Jeju should be a lot more bearable, topping out at 26 degrees. Meanwhile, inland regions of Gyeongsang-do could receive some passing rain, which will add humidity to the air. Please take good care. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at 2 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.